The relentless American tragedy unfolding once again. Another school shooting, this time in Santa Fe, Texas. 10 people killed. A student said that she saw someone with a gun in her art class. Teachers told their students to run as police converged on the scene. Ambulances and life flight helicopters also at the school. Students moving to a nearby gym in those moments as their parents rushed to get them. Today's school shooting is the third in 8 days in the United States and the 22nd since the beginning of this year.
Three, two, one. Okay, now number one. 3, 2, 1.
You know, as parents, we always want to say we have the best kid, but man, Chris was really one of a kind. He really, really was. You know, he was one of those, like, just has that energy when you walk into a room, you just feel it. He was that person. And he was always the protector, you know. It's just how he was. And even when he got in trouble, I would tell you if he didn't make me laugh at least 80% of the time, and then he would not get in trouble because he would make me laugh. And then there was this one time he was going to church in Hitchcock, and I just didn't want to drive that day. I'm not gonna lie, I did not want to get up, didn't want to get dressed. And I tell you, if this little boy did not turn around and say, "Mom, are you gonna deny me Jesus? Go get dressed. Go get dressed." Who comes up with that stuff? Are you gonna deny me Jesus? But yes, those are the little things that, I mean, it's just Chris.
I'm here in my garage, which is where the first step of my nighttime routine begins. I like to work out. I ain't the fittest person, but at least I can try to be. So I work out at least once a day. I take Sundays off because I ain't about to be doing it every day, every week.
Kyle was real easygoing. He was I always say he was my helpful child. He was always, you always say, "Kyle, can you do this?" "Oh yeah, Mom, I'll do that for you." Dana could be like, "I don't want to do that." But Kyle was always just right there to help me, and yeah, that's why I said I lost a good helper. And Kyle was always my little, he was my follower. If Danica said she wanted to do something, Kyle would be right there following her. But he wouldn't say I wanted to do something first. It was normally her saying, "Let's do this," and he'd be like, "Okay," you know. He wasn't the one who necessarily instigated any of the stuff they got into. But I know he followed a lot.
Kyle's gonna be like a freeloader.
No, I'm not gonna be a freeloader. Either I'm gonna do YouTube like this, or I'll just become an architect, because I wanted to be one of those whenever I was a kid anyways.
Oh my goodness, he and his best friend Esther, they would do videos all the time, just all kinds of things, like the makeup challenge or whatever, that one's on there.
I don't know if this is gonna go well. Oh shoot.
You know, and then they went on there and he would just talk about himself, or he would go out there and show his workout. Yeah, so those were really good videos. After he was gone, I went and watched them all numerous times.
But Mexico trips, like with your besties, like taking the cute Instagram pics. I
That's
feel
where
like
we should go for senior trip. We should go, like, you, me, and like Savannah can go somewhere, or like a bunch of other friends.
I was getting dressed and my phone rang, and it was Chris's friend Colby. And I thought, you know, that Chris had forgot something. That was my initial thought. And I answered the phone and I said, "What?" You know, like a typical parent. And then there was like a small moment of silence. You know, I said, "Hello?" And the next thing I know, Colby said, "Mama Stone, you need to get to the school that say Chris got shot."
Shooting at the high school, have an officer down, shooter not in custody.
I was at work, obviously, because I go to work early at 7 o'clock. And so I was at work, and Danica called me and said, she was screaming, and she said, "Kyle's been shot." And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Kyle texted me and told me he's been shot."
We were told by a student that was with him that Chris was trying to escape the room, didn't succeed. but he did go into a closet with other kids, and he was the one to help hold the door closed, and he did shoot through the door, and it hit my brother.
He said that he would do that. After Florida happened, we talked about school shootings in February, and we talked about all kinds of scenarios. I told him to play dead. He just turned and he looked at me and he goes, "But Mom, what about if somebody needs help?" I just turned and looked at him and I said, "Chris, I don't care what you do, you just need to make it home to me." And he's, "Oh, Mom, I got this. But who would have ever thought that 3 months later we'd be doing it, you know?
So I told my boss, I gotta go. So I rushed out to the car and I drove here. And by that time, I had heard more stuff on the radio. I remember getting to the liquor store down on Highway 6, and that's as far as I could go. They had everything blocked off.
I guess either they figured out who I was or they figured out who my son was, because the next thing I know, they're directing me to that an admin building, I guess what it is. I don't even know what that thing is. And that's whenever I stopped. And I looked at Angela and I just told her, something's not right here.
They kept on telling us nobody had been shot, nobody had been killed. And so we were still looking for Kyle at that time. And then finally, reports started coming out that people had been shot, people had been killed. But they still didn't tell us anything. They still didn't say anything.
Finally, FBI came in, and I remember them asking me what was he wearing, and I don't remember. I didn't know because I didn't see him. And I remember throwing my phone at them and told them, you know, go through my phone, look what he looks like. And for 10 hours, I kept asking. And I think that's what makes it the hardest, was because for 10 hours, I kept saying, is anybody dead? And for 10 hours, they told me no. And everybody already knew that we had people that were deceased, you know? And I think that I was asking that question because my heart needed to know, you know? He would have called me. He would have called me.
So after all that time, we finally got taken in. They separated us and they took us into individual rooms, and that's when that was just a dead giveaway. They hadn't said anything, but they were taking us into individual rooms, and I remember hearing Rosie scream.
They took us into this back little room and they sat me down in a chair, and there was so many people there waiting for Chris. She just takes my hand and tells me that Chris was one of the dead. And so 10 hours later, I went home without my baby, and here I am 6 years without him.
You know, my husband was there, and I just walked in the door and I just shook my head, and he's just like, oh my God, no, no. And that was the beginning of, the end, I guess, That was just, this journey is just horrible. Nobody should ever have to do this.
My daughter was here that day. She was also the girlfriend of Chris Stone, one of the victims. Again, it was just misinformation and chaos everywhere. But I will never forget when they told us. And whenever they confirmed that Chris was one of them, I'll never forget the wail that came out of Rosie's mouth. It was what they call a death wail. It was so soulful. It was like her soul was leaving her body. And she started screaming, how do I bury my baby? How do I bury my baby? And she kept saying it over and over again. And that moment has never left me.
Months passed. I couldn't get out of bed, to even take a shower, brush my teeth, or brush my hair. You're alive, but you're dead. That's exactly what it feels like.
Mostly it was just us at the house, just sitting around, just staring at nothing. Because, you just don't believe that it's true. You don't believe that something like that can happen. Going in Kyle's room, you know, looking at everything and then just shutting the door because it hurts so bad, you can't look in there anymore. And then, you know, hoping that maybe they were wrong. Hoping that maybe, you know, another kid was wearing the same color shirt and my son's gonna, you know, call me any minute saying it's not true. You know, I'm here, I'm alive.
Thank you, Chris. I think that was the longest unveiling ever. You know, I'm just a mom who was trying to find a way to take care of her child and get her through this very traumatic time. I already knew how important, you know, being able to honor veterans and other deceased of mass tragedy was important to me. And even before the school district put out a notice, I already knew I was going to be part of designing the memorial. I don't know if they knew it yet, but I knew it.
Megan is the smartest person I know. The smartest person I know. Her heart is all in this. I mean, 150%. Not even a little bit, it's 150% all in.
This gift of nature from New York City will serve as a national landmark of hope in the memorial that recognizes the strength of those that lost loved ones, the courage of those who survived, and salutes the first responders who risked their lives to help others. Thank you.
This memorial is a way to not forget what happened. I always say that Santa Fe is the forgotten shooting because we are. You know, you hear about Parkland all the time and then you hear about Uvalde, but you don't ever hear about the one us that happened in the middle. You just don't.
You know, us parents, we have to break that mentality. Don't think just because you got a whole bunch of money and you live in a gated community that it can't happen to you, because it can. So changing the mentality of the world today is going to be hard, but I want to throw the first stone and make the ripple and just see who picks it up and does it after me. And I think that's how we make change.
At night, a beacon of light illuminates the darkness from within, recognizing 10 kindred spirits that we, the students of Santa Fe High School, will never forget. Jerry Conner Black, Shayna Fisher, Christian Riley Garcia, Kyle McLeod, Ann Perkins, Angelique Ramirez, Cynthia Tisdale, Savika Sheikh, Kimberly Vaughn, and Chris Stone. We come here to remember them. Thank you.